Hello everyone, I'm back with yet another obscure tech video, this time something a little less obscure than last time, a little less specific. We're going to be talking about key charging. It's a video I've wanted to do for, I don't know, a year, maybe 2 years, ever since I've started using key charging as a setup and as aspect of my gameplay. But we're not talking about taunting with key charge, we're not talking about the things you usually see on Tekken Ranked, you know, the post-game BM, somebody washing you and key charging, nothing like that. What we're going to be talking about is how we can use key charge in gameplay, how we can apply it, what are its properties, how to get rid of it, and also what kind of situations are great for it. What does it allow us to do? How does it allow us to mind game around our opponent? So let's get into it. So what is key charge? Key charge is a generic state that every character in the game can enter. It requires you to press all 4 attack buttons, and then it throws these golden sparks around you. And it also means your next hit will be counted as a counter hit. Unfortunately, it comes with the drawback of not being able to block, and also the next hit against you will also count as a counter hit. After either side gets hit, key charge will finish. The other notable property of key charge is chip damage. Every hit in key charge will cause chip damage. Please note, the chip damage doesn't increase with rage, so this is just a flat amount that is applied regardless of rage or not. From what I can gather, the amount of chip damage is dependent on the increase that your move would get from a counter hit. So my 2 jab gets a 2 damage increase on counter hit, my standing 3 gets a 3 damage increase, and that's the figures you can see in the chip damage above. Majority of the characters have a 55 frame startup on their key charge, and a duration of roughly 270 frames or 275. It differs very widely for some characters, but this is just a general baseline. One of the characters that does differ in startup and duration is Jack. His key charge startup is 90 frames and his duration is 570 frames. It's a lot of frames to be counter hit in, but also a lot of frames to potentially score a counter hit as well. Something to make note of, moves that do damage to yourself, such as Nina's forward 4 without the tech roll, or Yoshi spin or Yoshi seppuku, are not affected by key charge. They will not remove your key charge and they will not increase the damage. As we're nearing the end of this basic section, let's talk about throws, because there's some really interesting interactions with throws. Landing a throw will not remove key charge. It will remain active until it either runs out or somebody gets hit after the throw. However, breaking a throw will actually remove the key charge from you, which effectively means this is probably one of the safer ways to dump the key charge that you don't want. So in this section of the video, we're going to go through some of the situations that you can use to set up key charges in a real game scenario, be it from wall enders, floor breaks, balcony breaks, and more. So let's get into it. So while this is fairly character situational, here we have an example of a combo that launches the character high enough that the character, in this case Asuka, has enough time to key charge to gain extra damage on the subsequent hit of that combo. There's no way an opponent can interrupt this. It makes the combo a little bit more difficult, but marginally. So this is guaranteed 2 more damage just because of the key charge. And of course, there are other characters like Anna that can also potentially try setups like these. However, in Anna's case, you don't actually really get anything from the key charge outside of less damage and a little bit more taunt potential, I suppose. So another type of key charge I quickly want to go over is an inbuilt key charge that some characters can do from their moves. Leo is a good example that we can see on screen, but there are other characters like Raven that can also perform this. So in this case, from forward 2 and also down forward 2, Leo can go straight to key charge if you hold 1+2. And in this case, we're getting a better ender at the wall thanks to using the key charge. So, a little disclaimer, the previous few clips were all guaranteed damage, you know, fairly common uses of key charge within the game, very little risk added on. Many things to just jog your mind if you haven't seen these kind of things before. Start exploring around your character in practice mode, see if maybe there's any class 0 launchers that you can do that allow you to do something like that. Explore these possibilities. But from here onwards, nothing is guaranteed. We're going to be looking at setups and things that are relatively free throw. There will be things where your creativity will be really the bounds of how you want to apply these setups. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I've prepared some clips. Most of them are from my previous games over the years. Some of them will be from lab because I don't have clips on hand to show certain situations, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what kind of things you can do and how you can apply some of these mix-ups. So this one's a fairly basic clip. You know, starts with a combo, and the main idea I had in this clip was to give myself as much time as possible to try to get Vitalik here onto the wall. The more time I had, the more time to safely key charge, right? So in this instance, I gave myself just enough time by using the wall carry ender instead of a different ender to have time to key charge, and then by the time he actually tried to wake up with a wake up kick, or in this case waking up straight into while standing 4, I had enough time to finish my key charge and also get the 8 frame activation of a power crash. Obviously there's a fair few mistakes in this clip from me, like not getting my resplat correctly and such, but it still allowed me to have a very offensive situation and get a bunch of damage and finish the round off of it. This clip is a little bit different since there's no way I can reach the wall. Like, this combo is not going to reach the wall. I can't really set up the same situation I had in the last clip, but what I can do is, again, try to give myself as much distance. In this case, I'm not even using an ender that gives me any big degree of space, but something that just gives me enough, because I've had so many hits, and this was from a balcony break combo. I know that ender will send my opponent quite far away, and so I'm comfortable using running 2, send him far away, gives me time to key charge. The other thing about running 2, especially for Claudio, and do keep in mind there's other characters with similar moves, maybe not exactly the same, but similar archetype of move that will work great for this situation, is you ideally want a move that's as fast as possible, either has really high damage or some kind of a counter hit property, and if it leaves you at decent enough frame advantage, or even low frame disadvantage, even if it's just slightly minus, you might still be okay. If you can find a move like that, which not every character will have, of course, that's kind of your ideal situation. So running 2, because as a Claudio player, I do quite a lot of instant while running. This is a good move for me to use as a keep out or as offense. In this situation, if Joey were to actually block this running 2, I'm still +7 and he's now just taken chip damage, and I'm still in the driver's seat. I have Starburst because of the ender I used. I still have Starburst, so I can continue the pressure. I could try to obtain more plus frames with things like down 1-2. I could go for the unblockable. I could go, if I wanted to end the key charge state, I could try to go for a faster move like a jab, which again puts me at +1, or even like a down 4 to interrupt the pressure a little bit. So the options are open, but in this case I get quite lucky, and the additional damage for counter hit on running 2 is 6 damage, so it goes from I think 40 damage to 46 or something like that, and that's actually almost enough to kill my opponent in this situation. But if it wasn't, then, you know, if he did actually end up blocking, yeah, I could still mess around with things and still attempt other things. So very briefly talked about the chip damage earlier in the last clip, but in this clip we actually see applying that pressure. If the opponent is continuing to block, and in this instance my running move is so plus, it's +7, it's doing at this point probably about 5 to 6 damage on block for every single hit of it. I'm chipping my opponent out, right? And you can see this in practice. Obviously none of this is guaranteed pressure. If he ducked at any point, I could have been dead. But this is something that you can do. Your opponent may freeze up. Key charging isn't something that's very common, and so if you can apply this tech in this sort of situation, you can make him freeze up, and you can just apply the pressure. Just keep that chip damage going, keep that plus frame pressure going, and push your advantage until you can't push it anymore. So let's have a look at some of the situations that we can actually set up fairly generically across different characters. So in this situation, we have a combo going on Forgotten Realm, we break the floor, and then we can see the Heihachi, in this case me, going against my recorded ghost, is trying to mash out a wake-up kick, but isn't able to because of the way you fall on floor break and balcony break. You actually end up rolling instead. So if you want to get a wake-up kick, you have to delay it slightly and then do it, which gives the attacker, in this case the Claudio player, a little bit more time to set up the offense or whatever setup they want to do with key charge. Something worth noting is that outside of the toe kick, both the 4 option and the wake up 3 option are both too slow to deal with majority of the moves. So in this case, I'm using an I-13 move. Neither of those can deal with it, and if I do notice them and if I can spot them, I can counter hit confirm back 3-3 for about 45 damage. So because our opponent is stuck on the floor for so long and able to tech roll as well, using moves that are a little bit fast, let's say I-13 or onwards, maybe a little bit of a detriment. You might be losing out on the actual counter hit potential because you might be hitting grounded instead. So something to consider is using moves a little bit slower. So in this clip you can see me using forward 1+2 with Starburst. If the opponent wakes up into the mid, thinks I'm going to do down to 2 for example, it's pretty much a true 50-50 mix. They will just eat a full launch, and if they don't duck, then down to 2 will connect, counter hit, and I still get a full launch. And of course, this isn't Claudio exclusive. Other cards can do this as well, so you can also see a clip of Asuka using down back forward 3, so a low in this case, to mix the opponent up. You can use an alternative mid, like forward 3 as well for a counter hit launch, or 1+2, or down 2. There's plenty of different moves you can use as well, so it's all depending on what you fancy. So in this penultimate section of the video, I'm going to be going over mind games. Now, keep in mind, the entirety of this section is entirely theory that I've built up over the years. This isn't one way to think about the game. This isn't even always going to work with every single player. But I'm going to try to show you the way I approach it and how you can create mind games with Kicharge and how you can force the opponent into stressful situations. So I got 2 clips that I'll be going over. One is from the TWT finals, the last chance qualifier that I've played in, and the other is from the most recent installment of Red Bull Golden Letters. Both against fairly high level players, so I can talk about how I approached it and what my thought process is. So in this first clip, I was 2 rounds behind. I wanted to do something big. I wanted to throw my opponent Dabi off of his game a little bit. So I decided to opt in for a strategy of keycharging. So after the throw, I managed to land a running 2, which gave me a lot of time and a big distance to deal with. Because I was so far away, I knew that I can play either defensively or offensively. In this case, Dabi decided to approach me, and I just backdashed, made sure that I could visually confirm the whiff, and then get some more damage. Now, the second key charge in this clip is a little bit more hectic. I think I was just really feeling myself. I wanted to push the advantage, but even at the end of this clip, you can see that I'm trying to space out. I'm trying to give myself enough room so that I can attempt to react to what's happening. In that situation, I think what I was ideally hoping for is landing a Power Crush to be anything else that may come out. Obviously, I would lose to a low, or in this case, lose to a Rage Art, which I didn't really foresee. But that's the kind of approach you can take, using that space to give yourself some more time to process information on screen. Now the second clip, a bit of a different beast. Chikamaru is a really high level player, and he has played me before as well. And I was severely behind, but I wanted to mess with him. I wanted to put pressure on him because he had the health advantage, and I wanted to suddenly turn the tables. I wanted to stress him out. I wanted him to start considering what other options I have. Obviously, he's aware that Claudio has really good long range options and really good counter hits. So I wanted to change my timing and play with space in a way that allows me to bait out a move from it. And you can just about barely see it on the clip, I think, when you slow it down. But he does actually press near the end, where just before running 2 goes to hit him, and you can also hear the sound cue in the original clip. But I've spent so long, and considering key charge lasts about 5 seconds, and I was around 2 to 3 seconds in before the expiry of the key charge, I really wanted to mess with Chikamaru by delaying that timing, and I think that's partially why the running 2 actually connected, purely because I've delayed it enough to make him want to try to seize the advantage. So I'm out of clips, but there's still a couple of things I want to discuss. The big thing is about key charging and plays of this nature, not just key charge plays to be fair, is these sort of plays are meant to attack the opponent's mental. Obviously in a high stress situation like a tournament or a ranked deathmatch or those kind of situations, your opponent is on the edge. They're always trying to work out what you're doing. They're trying to predict, oh, you know, your character has this move and that move, and is that likely to come out? The moment you start whipping out very wild strategies like key charge setups, they suddenly, if they're not used to it, they suddenly have to make a decision based on something they've never seen before, based on something they might not be used to. And that puts so much stress on them, and they might not be able to make the correct decision to deal with it adequately. They might be used to it sometimes, but ultimately it's still stressing them out. It's a bit of a dirty strategy to a degree, but like any competition, mental warfare is part of the game, effectively. So this is why I'm such a huge advocate for using plays like this. I think it's vital. Even if you're playing against someone much better than you, like me with Chicken Maru, or I even did the same kind of strategy to Rukang the other day. Just do it. It doesn't matter if they're a big or small player. You can still put that pressure on them. Purely because this isn't the kind of setups you see very often. Obviously, maybe after this video, it might become a bit more common. But regardless, it's still worth doing for that reason. The other aspect I want to talk about of this is these plays don't necessarily have to result in anybody getting hit. So in some situations, you can actually, I have no clip of this, but what you can do is you can key charge, and if the other person is too scared to approach, and then say you're on an infinite, you can burn the timer over it. Let's say you have a health lead, they know your character has strong tools, or maybe you've done the key charge before and they're just hesitant, they're staying down on the floor, or maybe they're just staying really far away from you. You've just burnt 5 seconds successfully. That's made it harder for them to now mount a comeback versus your health lead. You've successfully burnt the time. And if they do try to approach you, you've still got counter hit options, you know, as keep out. Be a, let's say, Claudius forward 3 in my case. I could use that as a great counter hit option, or even back 1. It's a retreating mid, effectively. It's a backsway mid. So options like that suddenly become very, very powerful and give you a massive advantage on the opponent approaching you. So consider that, you know, this can be used very, very aggressively, and a lot of the clips I've shown are ultimately ways of utilizing key charge to fuel your aggression. But there are ways to also use this as a defensive mechanic and a defensive play, even if it may not always work out in that way. And with that, I think I'm done. Obviously, this video got a little bit long. I do apologize. I didn't actually anticipate this going to 17 or 18 minutes or whatever I'm at right now. The one thing I want to very, very quickly touch on is the future of key charging, because I think this is very, very exciting. Obviously, when I'm making this video, we've just seen brief clips from the Tekken 8 alpha, the first alpha that came out, so if you're watching in the future, pinch of salt. Key charges in the game. The game is very, very offensive. The heat system allows for a lot of offense. There's been a lot of generic changes, like the wake-up kicks now not counter-hitting. So I think there's very, very good potential for using key charge as with approach tools, and then into things like heat dash to continue pressure. And you know, if you're in plus frames in a 50-50 situation on your character, and you also have counter hit properties due to the key charge, I think you're gonna have a very, very strong situation. And I think ultimately these changes in Tekken 8 actually make it a much better game for setting up key charge setups. And this is just a theory, in-game theory, truly. But I think it'll be very interesting to see if those options come out. And, you know, if you get Tekken 8, if you're watching when Tekken 8 has come out and you're somehow on this video for some reason, what are you doing? Why are you not playing the game? Try it. Give it a shot. Maybe it'll be a good idea to try those things and maybe come up with setups of your own. Maybe things I haven't considered. Maybe, you know, heat engager things into key charge might be a viable option. So have a look, explore, use this video as a guide, not as a rules set in stone for any of this. This is ultimately very, very biased and from my perspective. So just use it as a guide and develop your own things, learn from it, have fun. That's the most important thing. And if you have any questions, obviously drop them in comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And with that, thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you guys around. Peace.